A popular EDH discussion is the number of commander decks a person has. Is there a right number, or a limit to the number of decks we should have? In this episode of the Mana Confluence, we will discuss the question and I'll let you know how many I have. The number of commander decks you want or need is a very complex question with three main components to determine your answer. 1. Budget and personal collection. How much can you spend on each deck and what cards do you have that you could put into each deck? If you have 4 copies of every card, you are 1, very rich or extremely broke now, and 2, able to make many more decks than someone who only owns a deck builder's toolkit. If you also have $100 to spend on Magic a week, you can purchase many more cards for your deck than a person on a budget. If you're looking for tips and you are a person on a budget, you can check out my video for 5 tips for players on a budget in the description below, or up in the corner if I can figure out how to do that. 2. Power level. You need more decks if you're playing against varying levels of decks. Comboing off against my Kangi deck, link in the description below, on turn 3 is not very cool. In other words, you should play against new players piloting weaker decks with a weaker deck. So a weaker deck, a middle power deck, and a competitive or more powerful deck is needed if you're in a situation where you're facing the people of that same power level. The third and final criteria is use. If you want to build 76 commander decks, be my guest. But if you will never use 30 of them, what's the point? I understand having a couple you won't use, but 30 decks you won't use keeps cards out of strategies where they could be effective. So how many commander decks do I have? There's a fourth element to how many commander decks you want, which is, well, how many commander decks you want. If you want to build 25 and they will all at some point see play, or even not, go ahead if that's what makes you happy. This video is about ways to optimize the number of decks you have to play against different people or just have more fun. But if you enjoy having 559 decks, then be my guest. After all, Commander is just about having the most fun possible. And for me, that is 11 commander decks, with 1 under construction. What are they? Here we go! 1. Lazavdimir Mastermind. This deck is great against a weaker pot and it's all about exiling creatures and using Eldrazi like Oracle of Dust to not only gain value, but at will morph our commander into anything we want. Dinosaurs beware! 2. Tristani Slesnia's Voice. This mid-level powered deck will be a bit too strong for weaker pods because it's all about going wide with tokens and then bumping up your team with cards like New Tristani. You can see an in-depth deck tech up in the corner in that cute little box. Hi box! 3. Saheeli the Gifted. This higher power deck is all about artifacts ramping into other artifacts. Soaring quickly ramps into really large artifacts or even Eldrazi, although we don't play any Eldrazi in this deck. This deck is really fun to play. 4. Kangi, Airy Keeper. This deck is a more casual deck in which we can use tribal and flying synergies to overwhelm opponents and win with birdies! But don't be mistaken, we can win in more aggressive pods as long as they respect the fun of what we're doing. You can check out that deck tech in yet another cute box. 5. Voral the Wholeclade. This is a bit more competitive deck that can go off by putting insane numbers of counters on things and going wide and winning the game. And with cards like Kyora's Follower, we can just go off even faster. 6. Rakdos the Showstopper. Tribal demons can either win with Liliana's Contract or just because they're demons. This is a more powerful deck, but it can unfortunately not combo out. The size of the creatures is comparable to the size of the box. I mean, you make the list, you should make the box, am I right? 7. Teysa Karlov. A decent power level deck that is focused around death triggers. Afterlife cards are amazing in this deck, as well as everything that removes permanents when it dies. 8. Melik, Izzet Paragon, one of my most fine-tuned, powerful decks. It's sometimes lackluster in the early game, which has in the past kept it from comboing out easily, but as of recently that has changed. This deck is all about copying extra turn spells so that we never have to give the turn back and winning during these turns by storming off or huge amounts of tokens. 9. Tatyova, Benthic Druid. This landfall deck is potent and draws a lot of cards. It either self-mills and wins with Lab Maniac or New Jace, or it can mill you out. 10. Nazan Revered Bladesmith. Another decently powerful deck. This one buffs up one creature, or makes a bunch of creatures, and can swing in for lethal with not only equipment but tribal synergies. Personally, I prefer dogs, but until Maui gets some more powerful friends, this will suffice. Last but not least, 11. Estrid the Masked. One of the most, if not the most powerful deck I own, Estrid will create a lot of mana, draw a lot of cards using enchantment triggers to not only gain a lot of life, but create a lot of tokens and win the game if the board is not wiped in one turn. If it is, then we do the same thing next turn while our key permanents enjoy hexproof and we can't be attacked. That's a quick run through of my 11 and counting decks. If you want a more in-depth deck tech for any of them, just comment it down below and we can probably make it happen. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.